You ever look back at a single week of your life and realize it was the moment everything quietly changed? Yeah. That week started with my boss calling me into his glass office at 8:47 a.m., holding a printed spreadsheet like it was a crime scene. "Close the door, Evan." He never said please. I'd been with the company for 5 years, a data analyst in a firm that pretended to care about people-driven culture while burning through employees like printer paper. My boss, Mark, was the kind of guy who'd smile with his mouth but not his eyes. You know the type. Every word calculated, every handshake transactional. That morning he was pretending to be calm, but I could see the twitch in his jaw. "We've got a problem," he said, tossing the spreadsheet across the desk. "The quarterly report. The numbers don't match the board submission." I looked at the pages, scanning the columns. I knew that report. I'd built it. Every formula, every source was airtight. Then I noticed it, a change in the projections tab, a formula overwritten with a hard number. His number. "Mark," I said slowly, "that edit wasn't for my account." He leaned back, fake sigh, hands clasped behind his head like he was the victim here. Look, Evan, I'm not saying it was intentional, but the CFO's furious, and he's asking who signed off on the data." I felt my stomach tighten. "You did. You signed it before it went out." That's when he smiled, the kind of smile that tells you you've already lost. "I'm saying your name's on the final submission, and right now, the board wants accountability." That word, accountability, it echoed. I remember my palms going cold, my mind spinning through every backup file, every timestamp, every version I'd saved. But none of it mattered, because Mark knew exactly what he was doing. He'd made the mistake. He'd pushed inflated numbers to impress the board, and now he needed a scapegoat. I was quiet, because fighting back in that office with his degrees on the wall and his assistant sitting 3 feet away pretending not to listen, it would have been useless. I'd seen it happen before. A co-worker named Lily got thrown under the same bus a year earlier. They called it a performance issue. 2 weeks later, Mark got promoted, so I nodded. "Okay, what do you need me to do?" He relaxed instantly, mistaking compliance for submission. "Just help me get this cleaned up. Send a revised version to finance and take the hit in the meeting. Tell them it was an oversight, something in the formulas. I'll smooth it over." "Take the hit," I repeated. He grinned. "It's a team thing." I walked out of that office numb. The floor was open plan, all white desks and fake greenery, a perfect stage for pretending everything was fine. My coworkers were already whispering. Rumors spread fast in places that pretend to be like family. I spent the next 3 days cleaning a mess I hadn't made. Nights blurred into mornings. I rebuilt the data model, wrote a 20-page clarification report, and still, I knew it wouldn't matter. The narrative was already written. Evan made an error. The meeting came on Friday. Mark opened with his usual smooth tone. Unfortunately, one of our analysts made a calculation oversight. He said it like he was disappointed, not responsible. The CFO glanced at me, half sympathetic, half bored. "These things happen," he said, which in corporate language means it's your fault, but we won't say it outright. I took it in silence. The adrenaline had burned out by then. What replaced it wasn't anger. It was something colder. Clarity. When the meeting ended, Mark clapped my shoulder. "Handled like a pro, Evan. I'll remember this." And that's when I knew he meant it. Not as gratitude, but as permission. Permission to use me again whenever it suited him. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights bleeding through the blinds, staring at my laptop, every file, every message, every timestamp, proof that I hadn't done anything wrong. I could have emailed it to HR, could have called legal, could have fought. But something stopped me. I thought about Lily again, how she'd fought, how she'd ended up unemployed and blacklisted. No, I wasn't going to fight this the way they expected. I was going to end it differently, quietly, because something inside me had shifted. That invisible contract, the one that says you stay loyal, you'll be protected. It was gone, and I realized for the first time that I had nothing left to lose. The next morning I went in as usual. smiled, even brought coffee for the team. Mark didn't suspect a thing. He thought I was broken, compliant, but I had already started a backup of every project file, every Slack message, every timestamp that proved who edited that spreadsheet. I labeled it all, not for revenge, but for insurance. By noon, I had it all saved to a personal drive. I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and watched Mark through the glass as he laughed with the CFO like nothing had happened. Something about that laugh made everything click. The humiliation, the exhaustion, the quiet years of swallowing every unfair thing. All of it turned into something sharp, focused, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled, because I finally understood how this would end. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. I didn't know it yet, but that spreadsheet wasn't the real mistake. Trusting him was, but that was just the beginning. Monday morning came like nothing had happened. The office smelled of burnt coffee and corporate denial. Mark was already at his desk, sleeves rolled up, pretending to work on something critical. He didn't even look at me when he said, "Morning, Evan. Board wants another revision of the data by Thursday. You're on it." I forced a polite nod. Sure. That word, sure, was my armor now. Every time I said it, it meant the opposite. By noon, I could feel the shift. Co-workers who used to chat with me in the break room now avoided eye contact. I'd catch snippets of whispers. He's the one who messed up the numbers. Mark had to save him. Lucky he didn't get fired. Corporate rumors don't kill instantly. They bleed you out slowly. The kicker? HR called me in that afternoon for a friendly chat. The HR manager, Lisa, smiled too much. The kind of smile they practice in training videos. "Evan, this isn't disciplinary," she said. "We just want to understand what happened." I told her the truth, how the data had been altered after my submission, how I'd noticed the changes came from Mark's account. She nodded, took notes, said she'd review it internally. When I mentioned checking the version logs, her smile froze for half a second. That's when I knew. She already knew. They all did. "Evan, you're a valued member of this team," she said, tone switching to that rehearsed empathy. HR keeps on standby. But sometimes it's better to take responsibility and move forward. It shows integrity. Integrity, they love that word, as long as it means silence. When I got back to my desk, Mark was waiting. "Everything good with HR?" I stared at him. "They said they'll review it." He smiled. "Good. Let's keep it between us. No need to make it messy." Messy? Meaning, don't expose me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his face. Calm, confident, completely certain he'd get away with it. I opened my laptop and looked through the backups again. Emails, reports, timestamps. Every piece of proof sat there like loaded ammunition. But I didn't pull the trigger. Not yet. The next few days were a blur of fake smiles and quiet isolation. Mark loved the performance. He'd stop by my desk, clap me on the shoulder, ask how I was holding up. Colleagues looked at me like I was contagious. Thursday's meetings sealed it. The CFO opened with a sigh. "We can't afford another reporting error like last quarter," he said, looking directly at me. "Evan, make sure your future projections are airtight." Mark jumped in before I could respond. "We've already talked about implementing new checks. Evan's learning from it." Learning from it. Like I was some intern who'd spilled coffee on his desk. After the meeting, I went straight to my car. I didn't even take my laptop home. I just sat there in the parking lot, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel. I remember thinking, this is how they break you. Not with yelling or firing, but with quiet humiliation until you start believing you deserve it. That night, I poured a drink and opened my personal email. For weeks, recruiters had been reaching out. I'd ignored them all. But one message stood out. A rival company, smaller but reputable, looking for a senior analyst. I drafted a reply, paused, then saved it as a draft. Not yet. Because I wasn't just leaving. I was going to make sure when I walked out, Mark's mask went with me. Friday morning, the storm finally hit. Finance flagged a major discrepancy in the upcoming quarter's forecast. The same pattern as before. Same data source. Same spreadsheet lineage. Except this time, my name wasn't on it. At 10 a.m., I heard the CFO shouting from behind Mark's glass door. I didn't move. Through the frosted glass, I saw Mark's outline gesturing wildly, voice rising, his calm facade cracking. When he finally emerged, his face was pale. He looked at me, eyes narrowing. "Did you touch the model again?" "No," I said evenly. "You did." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Don't play dumb. You think you can screw with me after I covered for you?" "Covered for me?" I almost laughed. Instead, I leaned forward. "You might want to check the edit history this time. You're listed as the last one to modify it." He froze, just for a second. But I saw it, the flicker of fear. Then he smirked, recovering. "Cute. You think that matters? You're already the guy who messed up once. You'll always be that guy." He walked away before I could respond. But he was wrong. That afternoon, I emailed HR again, CCing myself from a personal account. Attached. The original report, the edit logs, the email threads with Mark's digital signatures. Nothing inflammatory. Just facts. Then I logged out, packed my few personal things, and stared at the office one last time. The gray cubicles, the fake motivational posters, the hum of fluorescent lights. I realized something then. You don't notice when a place stops feeling like yours until you're already gone. As I reached for my bag, Mark called from his office. "Evan, before you leave, the board's in town next week. Make sure the reports are ready." I looked at him, and for the first time in months, I felt calm. "Sure," I said. I walked out at 5:02 p.m. I didn't come back Monday, or ever. That evening, I submitted my resignation via email. No notice, no explanation. Just one line. "Effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunity." Then I turned off my phone, opened my laptop, and scheduled one final email to go out at 9 a.m. Tuesday to the board, the CFO, and HR. It included every file Mark had altered, every signature, every message. Nothing more. No accusations, no commentary, just light and truth. At 9:01 a.m., my inbox exploded with notifications, out-of-office replies, HR auto-responses, and one from Mark. Just 2 words. "You're done." He was half right. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would cost them everything. The email went out at 9 a.m. sharp. By 9:07, the silence broke. I wasn't in the office anymore. I was sitting in a cafe across the street, watching through the glass wall as people started moving faster than usual. You can always tell when panic hits a corporate floor. The rhythm shifts. Heads start popping up over cubicle walls like meerkats. Slack notifications light up like fireworks. Mark's door closed first. Then the blinds came down. That was his move when things got bad. Make it look like control. I sipped my coffee and waited. By 9:30, my phone buzzed. 27 unread messages. 3 missed calls from company HQ. I didn't answer any of them. My resignation had already been processed by HR's automated system. I was a ghost now. By 10 out, I got a text from Lily. The same Lily they'd thrown out a year ago. "You didn't." "I did," she called immediately. "You actually sent it?" "Every document, every timestamp, every message." She laughed. That breathless kind of laugh people make when they realize karma's finally working overtime. From the cafe window, I saw Mark storm out of the building, phone pressed to his ear, jaw clenched so hard you could see the muscle twitch from across the street. He looked smaller without his confidence, like the air around him had finally stopped believing his lies. I didn't follow him. I didn't need to. The next 2 hours were chaos. I know because people started messaging me from inside. Screenshots, snippets, whispers. The CFO had forwarded my email to legal. HR was running containment meetings. They were scrambling to find someone to blame. Except this time, the data told a story they couldn't rewrite. Every edit, every signature, every authorization, all under Mark's name. The spreadsheet that started it all, It was his handprint all over the evidence. I hadn't added commentary, hadn't accused anyone, just left the facts naked, unemotional, impossible to spin. By noon, his calendar was empty. His meetings canceled. The official line was that Mark was on leave, but everyone knew what that meant. At 2 p.m., a LinkedIn notification popped up. Mark Thompson has updated his profile. No longer listed as Director of Operations, just Independent Consultant. The rebrand of the damned. I sat there reading the update, feeling nothing. No rush of victory, no adrenaline, no vindication. Just a strange quiet, like the noise in my head had finally stopped. But the fallout was still rippling. By evening, 3 people from finance had reached out privately, cautious messages thanking me for doing the right thing. One even admitted that HR had known about Mark's edits for weeks, but chose to stay quiet, to protect leadership optics. That phrase stuck with me. Leadership optics. That's all corporate loyalty ever is. A mirror angled just right to hide the cracks. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cheap bottle of whiskey in my laptop. The company's internal chat had been shut down for technical maintenance. The rumor mill was already spreading across LinkedIn like wildfire. Someone leaked my resignation email thread, my single line, cold and polite. Effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunity. They said it was the most professional middle finger anyone had ever written. By midnight, I'd received messages from people I barely remembered working with. You're a legend. Finally, someone said enough, but I wasn't proud of it. Not really, because under all that chaos, there was something heavier. The realization that it had taken me 5 years to walk away from something that had been killing me slowly. That's the thing they don't tell you about the toxic jobs. You don't just leave them. You detox from them. Every time your phone buzzes, you flinch. Every time someone says, "Can we talk?" your stomach knots. You start apologizing out of habit. It takes time to unlearn obedience. 3 days later, I got an email from a personal Gmail address, Mark's. Dates. You think this is over? You just ruined my career. I hope you're proud. I didn't reply. There's no point arguing with a man who still thinks consequences are optional. Instead, I forwarded it to HR and the legal team, then deleted it. 10 minutes later, I blocked his number too. That night, I opened the draft I'd saved from before. The job offer from the rival company. Smaller firm. Decent culture. They'd reached out again that morning. I hit reply. Then I hit send. The next day, I started fresh interviews. Clean energy. No politics, just honest work. Meanwhile, the company I left was crumbling. The board launched an internal investigation, which led to an external audit. Mark's name was all over the discrepancies. Not just mine. Multiple quarters, inflated metrics, performance bonuses tied to falsified growth. The news broke 2 weeks later in a local business column. The headline was dry but devastating. Senior Operations Director resigns amid financial irregularities. I didn't share it, didn't gloat, didn't even screenshot it. I just closed the article and took a long walk outside, the kind you take when you're finally breathing again. That night, I deleted every backup file, every copy, every trace of that place. My insurance had served its purpose. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a pawn on someone else's board. That night, as I poured the last of the whiskey, I realized something. All those years I'd tried to be the dependable one, the fixer, the guy who held things together even when they didn't deserve holding. But maybe that was the real mistake. Maybe being the hero in someone else's story only works until you realize they cast you as the fool. That night, I stopped being the hero. 2 months passed. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to wake up without dread sitting on my chest. No 6 a.m. Slack messages, no emergency meetings that weren't emergencies, no quick syncs that turned into blame sessions. Just mornings. Quiet, clean, mine. The new job was different. Smaller company, fewer layers of nonsense. People actually read emails before replying. My boss, a real one this time, thanked me for work instead of taking credit for it. I'd laugh when he did, not because it was funny, but because it still felt foreign. But ghosts don't leave easily. Every so often, I'd see a notification pop up. Someone viewed your profile, and it would be a familiar name from the old company. Curiosity, maybe, or Damage Control. Once, even Mark's name appeared. I didn't block him. I wanted him to see. The last time I'd heard about him, he was consulting, which was corporate code for no one will hire me, but I still own a suit. Rumor had it he'd been pushed out quietly after the audit, stripped of his bonus, and blacklisted from the board's network. There was no trial, no public apology, no satisfying explosion. Just a slow, quiet implosion. The kind that eats people from the inside out. That's the thing about consequences. They don't always roar. Sometimes they whisper. And yet, I wasn't angry anymore. The bitterness had drained away. What replaced it wasn't forgiveness either. It was something simpler. Indifference. One Friday afternoon, I got a call from Lily. She was laughing so hard she could barely speak. Did you see it? See what? Check LinkedIn. Mark just posted that he's starting a motivational consulting firm. He's calling it Integrity First. I almost spit out my coffee. Integrity First. The same man who forged numbers and scapegoated his staff was now selling integrity. You couldn't script irony that pure. I didn't comment, didn't like it, didn't even share it. I just watched the post climb with fake congratulations and empty emojis, because I knew the truth. Those comments weren't respect. They were fear. People still pretending they hadn't seen what he'd done, hoping to stay off the radar. I'd been that person once, but not anymore. The next week, my old company's quarterly report hit the public filings. Numbers were a mess. New leadership had taken over, but investors were bailing. They blamed legacy mismanagement. Translation, the ghosts of Mark's shortcuts were still haunting them. It didn't make me smile. It just made sense. That Sunday, I drove out to the coast, parked near the water, sat on the hood of my car, and watched the tide roll in. I thought about those years, the long nights, the missed dinners, the times I said yes when every part of me wanted to say no. I thought about the version of me who kept apologizing for other people's mistakes, and I realized I didn't hate him either. He was just trying to survive in a system designed to punish honesty and reward manipulation. But he'd learned. He'd finally learned. A gull flew by, shrieking like it was laughing at the whole absurdity of it all. Maybe it was. I stayed there until the sky started bleeding into gold. My phone buzzed once. A news notification. Former executive investigated for data falsification. Internal whistleblower evidence cited. No names, but I didn't need them. I already knew. I turned off the phone, let the waves drown out the noise. You'd think revenge would feel loud, cinematic, explosive, but it doesn't. It's quiet. It's peace. It's knowing you walked away before the fire reached you, and still being close enough to see the smoke. Later that night, I opened my laptop one last time. In a folder marked Old Job, I kept a single file. Not evidence, not proof, just a simple resignation letter draft, the one I never sent. I reread it, slowly. I stayed loyal longer than I should have. That's on me. But this ends here. Then I deleted it, because it did end there. I'd thought I was walking away from a job, but what I'd really walked away from was the version of myself that mistook endurance for strength. Strength isn't holding on when everything hurts. It's knowing when to let go, and doing it without asking permission. As I closed the laptop, the reflection in the dark screen caught my face. Older, calmer, maybe even wiser. I didn't see bitterness there anymore. Just quiet. The next morning, my new boss sent a message. Client praised your report. Great work, I typed a reply. Appreciate it. Hit send. No adrenaline, no panic, just normalcy. And after years of chaos, that felt like victory. I walked out to the balcony, coffee in hand, the sunrise stretching over the city. Somewhere out there, Mark was probably drafting another motivational post about resilience or owning your mistakes. And somewhere deep down, he'd know the truth, that the story he'd tried to bury was still alive, told quietly by the people who saw what really happened. He thought I was gone. I wasn't.